Hi, everyone.
You did the wrong thing. Look, Lord, I'm running this house.
Good morning, Dr. Bryson.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good morning.
Hi. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
We'll wait just another minute or two to make sure everyone's here before we get started.
Hi, this is Mary. I'm wondering where the chat is.
We can start the chat once I get through the slides. It'll come up, I think.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sure. I just have a few slides to go through, and then I'll bring up the chat.
Sure.
I think someone has music playing in the background. Can you make sure that?
This is Frank. It's probably me because I'm at I'm at a Starbucks. How do I mute my side?
There should be a little speaker that you click on that you can mute yourself.
On the Zoom screen?
Yeah.
It's on the lower left, I think.
Oh, I see it now. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you attending on a Saturday morning, especially when, at least here in Arizona, it's such a beautiful day outside. And I hope that you get a lot out of our discussion today. The topic for today is let's discuss deadlines. This is a topic that's come up quite a few times in the peer mentoring that I do. So I thought it would be a good topic for today, just for us to refresh ourselves on what Ottawa's deadline policies are, and then how much room instructors have, within those policies to allow students to submit late material, and under what circumstances a late material can be submitted. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Karen Bryson. I am a professor of psychology and human services. I work through Ottawa Online. I'm a full-time faculty member. I've been with Ottawa for 15 years. It's gone by very quickly. I've worked with Ottawa Online since its inception. I was one of the very first instructors to work with Ottawa Online. And I also work as a Phase 1 instructor and a peer mentor. And so I hope that I can be a good resource for you as far as working with students and deadlines. Okay, let me move my little box here. Okay. So just to give you an idea, this is the Ottawa University late submission policy, and I'm just going to go through it very quickly. Then I'm going to go through what the students are told, and then we'll have an open discussion about late submission policy, the circumstances under which we might accept late submissions, any ways in which we might not accept late submissions, and just different scenarios and different things that have come up with you as you've worked with our students at Ottawa. So this is the late submission policy for our instructors. And of course, it starts with instructor approval. So that's very important, that the whole key to this entire policy is with instructor approval. That's why it's put first. You're the decision maker as to whether an assignment will be approved for late submission. So with instructor approval, assignments may be accepted for up to 1 week after the due date. So that's the general policy. They may be accepted for up to 1 week after the due date. That doesn't mean they have to be. That means they may be. If you do decide to accept a late assignment up to 1 week after the due date, there is a minimum automatic deduction of 10%. So that's a general guideline. If you accept a late assignment up to 1 week after the due date, we suggest that you deduct 10% of the points for the assignment. You also have the option of increasing this deduction to a percentage of up to 20%. So that's at your discretion. The minimum that we suggest is 10%, but you may go up to 20%. There may be circumstances under which you find that is appropriate. Extenuating circumstances may determine on rare occasions that an extension is allowed without a deduction, but that is at the sole discretion of the instructor. And notice it says on rare occasions. So there may be times which you will allow an extension without a deduction, but that's at your sole discretion. And just to give you one example of a time that I allowed a late extension without a deduction was when one of my students a few years ago, and I don't remember what year it was, that they had the hurricane in New Jersey, and New Jersey was hit very hard, and they were out without power for a week, in some cases for up to a week. And one of my students wasn't able to get her assignment off of her computer. She had no electricity, and that was documented. It was verified. I knew that was the case because my family is in New Jersey, and I know people were without electricity. So, I mean, that is an extenuating circumstance which she had no control over. She, was trying to prepare for it. But, when you have kids and your home is threatened to be destroyed, that may be an extenuating circumstance under which you would allow an extension without a deduction. And of course, in that case, the student had been doing all the assignments and doing well. So, you do have the leeway to be able to extend an extension without a deduction. Now, that's assignments. Discussion boards are a little bit different case. Students are required to make their discussion board posts, and they are required to make them on time within that discussion week. At the close of the week, it's Ottawa's policy not to accept any late discussion board posts. I mean, that's pretty standard rule that we don't allow students to do late discussion board posts. Once the discussion week is ended, they cannot submit to that discussion or reply to other people because there's no one else in the discussion board. It wouldn't make sense. There are no exceptions to this rule. However, at your discretion, you may allow a student to submit an alternative assignment to make up for the points. And again, this is under extenuating circumstances. And just to give you an example of one extenuating circumstance that I do allow this rule, it is in the case of students adding the class late. So a student may be admitted to the class, say on a Friday, and the discussion week has already started. And we know that the initial post is due on Wednesday, but they weren't even added to the class until Friday. So in that case, you may make an exception to the rule since they have started in the class after that particular deadline has come and gone, and they weren't even in the class to be able to submit the discussion board initial post on time. So there may be circumstances under which you will allow that post, in that case, to be the initial post to be posted late on Friday or Saturday after they're in the class, or an alternative assignment to make up for that missed assignment. No assignments will be accepted after the last day of the course, end of the term. So we know that our classes always end Saturday at midnight. So once Saturday at midnight comes and goes, then the term is considered over, the class is considered over, then no assignments may be accepted. And we don't expect you to accept late assignments after the class ends. So if arrangements have been made prior to the end of the class, and you can see it says at least 1 week in advance. So if a student knows that something, is going to happen and they may not be able to get the final assignment, say, in on time, they may make an arrangement with you, but it has to be made prior to the end of the class, and it must be approved by you. And they can't say on Sunday morning, after the class is already done, oh, I'm really sorry something happened, and then try to submit it retroactively. This is a case in which they already know that something may be occurring, may not be able to get their assignment in, so they make an arrangement that it's totally your discretion, you may accept an assignment late. I never do that, but that's totally your decision whether you want to accept an assignment after the class ends. But it has to be with your approval, and it does have to be before the end of the class. So these are the expectations that students receive within their class. So the students know this is in their class, this is in Blackboard. So these are the expectations that they have. If it is unavoidable that a class session or coursework is missed, the student is required to contact the instructor prior to or immediately after the absence to discuss the missed assignment and the expectations. So you can see, based on that sentence, that guideline, that it has to be some situation that's unavoidable, illness or death in the family, those types of things. The student must contact you, and they must discuss with you what arrangement needs to be made. If arrangements, if you decide that an arrangement may be made, then it's up to the student to initiate that contact and for you to decide whether or not you want to accept a late assignment and under what conditions. So the students know that it's their responsibility to contact you regarding a late assignment. And it says right there, please note, makeup work is at the discretion of the instructor, period. That's just, you do not have to accept late work. It's totally at your discretion. If you decide that makeup work is allowed, it must be turned in as stipulated by the instructor. So students know this up front. It's your decision whether you're going to accept late work, and if it's allowed, the instructor decides the parameters for that. And you can see there's additional guidelines here. After 2 absences, a student must initiate a conversation with the instructor to determine what is required to complete the course successfully. Failure of the student to initiate this conversation may affect the final grade. And then students with 3 or more weeks of consecutive absence prior to the start of week 6 are just withdrawn, or they should be withdrawn administratively. The registrar should take them out. That's why we require you to do attendance so regularly every week, especially for an online class, how important it is to make sure that you do the attendance, because the registrar will withdraw somebody if they notice that they have been consecutively absent from a class. And then I just made a note here. Students are aware of the time zone. This is inside the class, so they understand what midnight on Sunday means, since all assignments are due midnight on Sunday. They have an understanding of what that means, what midnight on Sunday means, and they know that the Blackboard operates under Central Time. So if they're in Arizona, they have to plan accordingly based on our time zone, because it's the late monitor is going to say, Central Time, not Arizona time. So whatever time zone they're in, they have to figure out when it's late for Central Time. And inside Blackboard is a little converter for them. So they can click on that link and they can see exactly what time, wherever they are that it's Central Time at midnight, so they know for sure. And then these are some things that we can discuss. Under what circumstances would you allow submission of a late assignment without a deduction? When would you consider it appropriate to offer an alternative assignment for missed discussion points? Is it appropriate to allow the late assignments more than 1 week after the deadline? What about students who reside outside of the Central Time? Are assignments submitted at midnight Arizona time considered late? And then submission of blank pages. I don't know if any of you have ever had this situation, but students will submit blank pages, and sometimes it may be that they're trying to just put a space filler in there so that they can submit the assignment later and it not be considered late.
Yes.
And any other questions that we may have. And I'm going to stop the screen share so we can see each other. Okay. Now, you should be able to now see the chat. I'm going to bring that up. So you can type questions into the chat, or you can raise your hand. If I can see you, a lot of you are blanked out. But if you want to bring yourself up on the screen, if you want to raise your hand and unmute yourself, and we can start the discussion. So we can we see the PowerPoint screen again? Yes, but then you won't see each other. Would you rather see each other or the PowerPoint screen? Does anyone have a preference? PowerPoint, okay. Okay. There's the PowerPoint screen. Okay. So under what circumstances would you allow submission of a late assignment without a deduction? What do you think?
Medical emergency.
A medical emergency, yes. And how many of you, there, I got the chat. How many of you require some sort of documentation of a medical emergency? For example, a doctor's note, a note from the emergency room. What do you think about requiring that?
So I think there's a concern if you don't do it the right way, because you can violate their personal confidentiality with medical records. But the note that clearly says that they have a condition that would prevent them from doing the work is one thing. But if they scan in the medical records or discharge paperwork, it will have confidential information on there that we should never be able to see.
I know, but students send it to us all the time.
Well, and I tell them proactively, you cannot send me that because I cannot see your private medical record information, but they can do a separate note or get one retroactively that just says that they were seen at the emergency department, and that's all it says.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so that's an excellent point. They can get proof from a doctor or the emergency room without the private information on it, that it just says that they were there. So we know that that's the case. Okay, so Mary says, I do accept the student's word about this unless they're too late or have missed too many assignments. And I think that goes to a pattern of behavior. For me, I find that really important to look at what has been the student's pattern of behavior. Have they missed a lot of assignments? Are they grasping for straws now that, their grandmother died and 2 semesters ago, their grandmother died, and, like grandmothers are dying, every term. I mean, I hate to say that, but sometimes I think they're, if a student is doing excellently and then something truly dramatic or tragic happens, then I think that, we need to take that into consideration. But certainly there are times when I think students are maybe not as truthful as we would like them to be. So yeah, let's see.
So I think we have a problem, and I'm in the nursing department, and we have students who work long shifts and sometimes overnight shift, and they will write to me and say, I just worked 3 12s overnight and I'm exhausted and I can't get my work in. And while the temptation is to want to feel sorry for them because they're tired, and we know what that's like. Everybody works, and they need to plan better. And so I don't accept work as an excuse. And whether they change their mind to all of a sudden they're deathly ill or not, but I don't allow them to say because of work I couldn't get my schoolwork done, because they just need to plan better.
Yeah, I think I'll bring up a case where I think work might be an issue, but yeah, for nursing students or other students that have shift work like that, and there's even students who do like hotel where they're working overnight, or, I mean, there's many professions where that type of work might come into play. So yeah, I think particularly for nursing, since it's such a large program, perhaps that we need to, when they first start the program, help them to do some kind of time schedule so they know what the requirements for Ottawa Online are and how that's going to fit in with their shifts, that they're working, so that they can plan ahead better and not get to that point where they just worked, 3/12s and then they find that they can't do the assignment. Maybe okay, 3/12s are coming, so let me do the assignment before I know, this large block of work. You know what I mean? Like, help them to plan that better. I have made exceptions for men and women in the military, because sometimes they might be deployed quickly and might not have an awareness that that's coming. So in the past, I have made exceptions for the military, and sometimes they do the weekend type of a thing where they're gone the entire weekend. But oftentimes they'll know that's coming up, so they can do the work ahead of time. But I have had students deployed fast. And so they may be in a situation where in the military, you might have to make some kind of exception. But that doesn't happen very often. I think that those are maybe individual cases. I don't know. Has anyone else ever had that situation where somebody had to be deployed very quickly?
I haven't had that, but I'm just curious. Do you ask for evidence in that case, or do you just let them go?
Most of the time, they'll have self-disclosed already that they are in the military. And the couple of times that, and like I said, I've been with Ottawa 15 years. It's only happened a couple of times. And they did provide documentation to me themselves. So there's nothing wrong with asking for it, because they do have orders, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a military person, but they do have documentation that they have to do that. Some kind of orders. Yeah.
What about also for students who are participating in disability resources with evidence, of course? I've accepted late work in that case, but it has to be in accordance with their plan.
So yeah, so that's a whole different issue. If they have ADA accommodations, you have to follow the accommodations very specifically, and one of the accommodations may be late submission of work. So in that case, yeah, we need to follow the guidelines. Well, it's legally binding that we allow, the ADA guidelines to be followed. So yeah, in that case, and it's very specific. I mean,
yeah. Right.
When you get the ADA paperwork, the guidelines are very specific.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Mary's saying she accepts students' word unless they're too late, have missed too many assignments. Okay. If it's the due date and it's the first time we agree on a new due date, I tell them everyone gets one oops. Okay, well, that's a good strategy. Yeah, the death of an immediate family member, this does happen, and sometimes it's tragic and horrible. I just had a student, and it was interesting, well, not interesting, it's horrible, that she had already disclosed a few weeks ago that her sibling was struggling with opioid addiction, and then the sibling overdosed. So that's just tragic and horrible. But she has, even though she disclosed to me that situation happened, her assignments haven't been late. But it's a good thing for students to disclose that just in case. I mean, because you never know when you're dealing with the death of a family member, close family member. they may be, handling the grief and then maybe not handling the grief at some point. So we never know how that grief cycle is going to go. So if they disclose early, and then maybe 2 weeks later that they just fall apart, then what's happening.
So I actually had a student who made up a death, and they made up a program and put themselves as reading the eulogy, and they had scriptures and hymns and everything in this beautifully made program. But I think so they made the mistake of putting where the body was interred, and I contacted the funeral home because I couldn't find anything in the paper about it or the obituaries. And I think that's only happened once in 20 years, but you get that gut feeling that somebody is not truthful, and it's not hard with the internet to look at it and to find something and ask some questions and do due diligence. Because just because it's a program from a funeral home that they made up doesn't mean that that's enough documentation if you feel it's suspicious. And it's not bad to look online because all that stuff is online.
Right, exactly. And how horrible that someone would go to that great length. The amount of time that it took that person to make up a program, they could have done the assignment probably, right?
Right.
That's just, that's really, really outrageous. Establishing a pattern, that's so important to look at what their pattern of behavior is. Strong students. So Garth Smith says, if a strong student submits late, I don't penalize. Yeah. Resources. Yeah. So Casey says, life happens, but their performance leading up to the event matters too. That's very good. Yep. Time management is important. Yes. And that's what students have to learn. I mean, sometimes it's difficult, but okay. How should you turn in a 0 for grade? No. Okay. Garth, excellent question. And I should have put this on the slide. The very first week that the assignment is supposed to be there and it's not, you need to put a 0 into Blackboard. That's really, really important. You must always, as soon as the assignment is late, there must be a 0 put in there. You can't let it ride at all. You can always change it later. When the student submits the assignment, then you do an override and you just put whatever their grade is. If you are accepting it late, then you just fill it in with whatever the new grade is, but you must put a 0 in there because sometimes students will think their grade is one thing because the 0 isn't there, and they're shocked later on. Maybe they will never, they tell you they're going to submit it late and they never do, and they think they have a B, and then you put the 0 in and they really have a C, and they're shocked. So you really, they need to have an up-to-date idea of what their grade is with that assignment as a 0. So it's really important to always put those 0s in there right when the assignment is due, if it's not there. That's an excellent question. Did you ask for evidence? Yeah, in the 2 times that it's happened in 15 years, they actually provided me with the documentation of their orders, of where they had to go and what was happening. One of the students, the one time it was online, and one of the students was an in-person student, and he actually came in his military uniform and handed me the papers. What about students who want to submit posts early, a week early? Well, what do you think about that? What do you think about posting to the discussion board a week early? What does everyone think? Do you want to unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Hey, Karen.
Laura, are you talking?
Yeah, I was trying to.
Okay.
I think early is fine. It's just, again, not to be a habit. At least they're aware of it and they're cognizant and keeping things straight and narrow with the short class of 8 weeks. So I'm fine with early as long as it doesn't become a habit.
No, I tell them not to, and I come down pretty strong on this for a couple of reasons. One, it does not mean that, it means that they don't get a placeholder for attendance for that week electronically. And the other thing is that it creates a lot of anxiety among their peers, and they think that they're behind in that. So I tell them to work on the work and save it in a Word document so that they're ready to post it, so they get credit for attendance as soon as the week opens. But I tell them not to post early for those reasons.
Yeah, this is Frank. That's a great idea or comment. One of the things that I would look at, because these are online courses, a student posting early is like a student coming to the physical classroom a day before and talking to themselves and then leaving. So I think we have to put it into context of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great, Frank, that's a great analogy. I love that. That would be my hesitancy about allowing a early discussion board posts. I know sometimes, like, I had a student who was going away on a cruise and for a week, and she didn't know whether she would have internet access on the cruise, so she wanted to post the discussion board early. Well, who is she discussing with? There's no one else in the discussion that week, right? If she's posting early, so it leads to some difficulty, being able to do that. But I think it was Carla who said you can create the content and then just hope that if you're on a ship, hope that you can find a port somewhere where you can just post it real quick. It doesn't even take that long just to get it. If you already have it created and saved, just uploading it would only take a few seconds.
They actually have internet on cruise ships, and it's $35 an hour. But if you've got it created, and I use that as an example in my announcements when I open the course, and I say there's internet all around the world. I have students who go on missions trips, and they say, oh, I'm going to be gone for a week. And I said, hey, I lived as a medical missionary in the jungles of Honduras, and there's an internet cafe on every corner in these remote jungles. So you can go there if you've got your work done, and there's no excuse for not getting it done in that week. Cruise ships around the world, you can go to McDonald's and get free internet.
That's great. I love that. Personally, I've never been on a cruise ship, and I never will because I have really bad seasickness. I could watch a movie of a ship and get seasick. So I don't have any personal experience, but thank you for letting me know that. Next time someone says they're going to be on a cruise ship, I will tell them cruise ships don't have access.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And so where were you? The jungles of where?
Of Honduras.
Of Honduras. Okay, I'll use that as an example too.
Yep, every remote village. And the reason that I'm so adamant about this is because when I was in my PhD program, there was a student who lived in Kenya, and they were in the middle of a civil war, and they would sneak across the border to the neighboring country to get to the airport where they had free Wi-Fi so they could keep up with their postings, and they never were late ever. So under gunfire threat, they would continue with their work. And I was like, oh my goodness. So people going on a missions trip or going on a cruise, I share that story with them. And I say, where there's a will, there's a way. And there's internet everywhere in the world.
That's awesome. Thank you, Carl. I love that. That's a great example. Okay, we have Garth says, there's a student who's a ball player and his coach needs to know his grade. He is running late. So I assume that means that he's submitting his assignments late? Turning in a 0 means failing grade. Wow. So maybe Garth, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, can you give us a little more information about that?
Yeah, ironically, I've got a student who, when he introduced himself at the first of the course, said he was taking the course again to improve his grade. And immediately he starts, he doesn't do any discussions for the first couple of weeks. And his work is really running behind, like several weeks behind. And then he sends me a message that his coach needs to know his grades. And another ball player who happens to be doing well in the course, it wasn't any problem giving the coach his grades. So the question is, should you be soft-hearted and not turn in the zeros and work with the kid and not, quote, rat him out to the coach, because he has started to improve just a little bit now that he knows he may not be able to play ball anymore. So what should I do? Just hold the line and that's his fault, or?
Yeah, well, what I would suggest, since you're absolutely required, there's no exception to the requirement of putting in a 0. You have to do that.
Okay.
Must do that. The week that it's late or not submitted, you have to put in a 0. So whatever his grade is grade is. So if he's failing, he's failing. However, how I would couch it is I would say, you know, right now he's not passing the class. However, you know, I am willing to work with him to get these assignments turned in. If he does do the work and if he's able to turn in the assignments, he still has a great chance of passing the class, but he needs to really step up, you know, his work. So maybe say right now the news isn't good, but, you know, he's showing improvement, and if he can get those assignments in, I will be willing to work with him, you know, so he can pass the class if these things are done. Maybe like that.
It's okay to share that level of detail with the coach?
That's up to the student. I'm assuming the student wants the coach to know that information.
The student is just telling me the coach needs to know what his grade is.
Okay, well, if that, you know, it's up to the student. The
Okay.
student will have to give you permission to, you know, to discuss that with the coach, but, you know, if the student just wants you to give a grade, then it's F.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful, Karen. I'll have that discussion with the
Hey,
student.
Karen, can I speak just for a second?
Sure, yeah.
Hi, this is Casey, and I'm sitting in an airport. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
I can't even see what you're looking at, so I don't know. Anyway, so I just had the same situation where I had a baseball player who needed his grade sent to his coach. I wrote him back and said, I'm happy to send your grade. Have you looked at your grade lately? Because it was a 38%. And I said, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to look at your grade and write back to me if you have anything you can put in before I send it to your coach. He wrote back to me and said, I don't have anything done. I'm so sorry. I've really dropped the ball. I said, no problem. We'll work on this together. I sent the grade to the coach. The coach wrote back and said, he will fix this immediately. To which I wrote back to the coach and said, wait. I'm not going to accept this for a late grade. He has had plenty of time. He's going to get a 0. Is that okay with you? Or are you asking me to make an exception here? He said, oh, no. You're going to give him a 0. And he's going to learn that there are natural consequences for this. But this is like I had 100% support from this coach, and I appreciated it so much. And this kid is working his tail off because his coach is riding his rear end. But I did give the student a chance to come up with a plan and to offer an idea before I responded to the coach. And he just wasn't willing to. He just said, nope, I've screwed up. I guess I'll try my best from here on out. And I said, well, that's your choice. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. I think
that was good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great solution. Thank you for sharing that.
So I don't know if you
And
guys
like I
recognize,
said-
but
oh,
there's legal teeth in this too, because they're considered ineligible for playing on their team if they don't keep their grades up, and that's why coaches are asking. It's not just so they can be the second parent, but they are ineligible. And I think we need to be careful that we're following fair grading practices, and would we do the same thing for any other student, not just because they're an athlete, because that can get the school in all kinds of hot water if we're making special exceptions for athletes and not for other students.
That's right. That's why the very first thing I said is at the instructor's discretion. So it's totally at your discretion how you want to handle it. But you bring up an excellent point, Carla, that what you do for one student, you should be doing for all students. So if you're the type of person that is willing to extend extra time to an athlete, then you should be willing to extend extra time to other students as well. Or if you're the type of instructor that says, under no circumstances do I accept late work, period, then that should be your policy for all students.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I had the same situation. This is Frank. But I was thinking about FERPA policy. And even though the coach may be, I don't know if a coach is considered faculty or what, but sharing the grades across the lines like that, I think could be problematic. So what I did in my case, I just contacted the student's academic advisor with the situation, and he took it from there. So I don't know what the policy is at OU around this. I teach at other schools. I've taught at other schools, but with FERPA and privacy, it could be an issue.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's an important point that we need to make sure that, you know, and it's up to the student to decide who you share that information with.
Karen, I think it would be helpful if we got Ottawa's official stance on this, because I believe that the coach is considered a need to know.
I do
according
too.
to, yeah, because in order to compete, they have to meet those benchmarks.
I believe so too. I will
Yeah.
get the official statement for all of you. But what I want to know more so than that, I think sharing the grade is 100% fine, but I will get the official statement. But more so, I'd like to know how much more that we're able to share. Like, for example, if they're showing improvement over time, or if we don't think that there's going to be a way they're going to pass, you know, that type of information that's more in depth than just F or A. You know what I mean? Like more subjective types of information that may give the coach additional, you know, idea of whether they're going to pass or not, perhaps. We probably need more guidance on that. So putting in a 0, Casey and Mary were having a little discussion about putting in a 0 on the first day it's late. Yes, I always do that. The minute that it's late, first thing Monday morning, as soon as I'm up at 5 a.m. Monday morning, if the sign is not there, there is a 0 there. And yes, the shock factor is excellent. You'll have students emailing you right away. If they haven't made initial arrangements to have the assignments turned in late, they will be emailing you immediately as soon as they see the 0 there. I put 0s in on Wednesday. Mary, can you give me more information about why you're putting a 0 in on Wednesday? Are you talking about the discussion or the assignments? Mary? Mary Firestone, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to type in assignments and I'm not, it keeps coming up on the same, post.
Putting 0s in for the assignments on Wednesday or for the discussion that's due?
I give them 0s immediately on Monday for discussions, and then assignments I wait until Wednesday.
Oh, because you're just starting to grade them on Wednesday?
Yeah, I don't grade on, well, no, that's not true. I grade on Monday and Tuesdays, but if I don't have submissions for writing assignments by Wednesday, then I put 0s for those too. But discussions always get 0s on Mondays.
Yeah, well, I do them all because you'll be able to see in the grade book what's missing, right? So whatever is blank, wherever there's a missing, you know, something that's not there that should be there, I just plug in a 0. Even if I'm not necessarily grading that assignment for a couple more days, I always put a 0 in on Monday for the assignment. I'm just curious why you wait till Wednesday.
I don't know. I guess I, you know, just do. I work for another college that requires that we put it in by Wednesday, and I've just kind of gotten into the habit of doing that with Ottawa too. But I mean, I'm fine with putting it in on Monday. I like the shock factor, and I think, you know, students need to know. They check their grades quite often, I think, and
but if they're submitting it, like say they submit it Wednesday morning, would you be able to tell like who submitted it on time and who is now late because they submitted it Wednesday morning instead of Sunday at midnight? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you go that much depth and say, oh, it was here Tuesday?
Well, you can see the date that it was submitted.
So would you then still accept it if it's like Tuesday night instead of Sunday at midnight? So if they submit it Tuesday night and it's late, then what do you do?
Well, I do accept it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I have not, it just kind of depends. I mean, I do have some students who are struggling right now with some of the assignments, and they're letting me know, and they're doing actually some resubmissions, and it just kind of depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. So if a student contacts you early in the week and says there's stuff going on and there's no way I'm going to get it submitted by Sunday at midnight, and they say, and we make an arrangement, I say, okay, can you get in on Monday or Tuesday? And they say, yes, definitely, I can get in by Tuesday. In that circumstance, that one circumstance, I then won't put in a 0 because they have assured me that they're going to get it in by Tuesday, and we already have a prior arrangement. So I wouldn't necessarily put in a 0 there. But then if Tuesday comes and goes and it's not there, then I put the 0 in. But if we have a prior arrangement, that we've discussed and we said, okay, you're going to get it in by Tuesday, and then they get in by Tuesday, and then that's fine because we already had that prior arrangement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would really like to know what people are doing with the blank page submissions.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, this comes up for me. And
I have a student this term that is doing that a lot. So what is everyone doing?
No blank pages. That's not an assignment. That's unacceptable. That's a 0 in my book. That's a 0. I know they're trying to beat the system by trying to make them give themselves more time or whatever the motivation may be. But if you submit a blank page to me, that is not an assignment, and you may as well just get the 0 for doing nothing.
And then what do you do then? So they will use that as an excuse to submit something late, right? So then they say, oh, sorry. And then they submit, I just saw this, great. And then they submit it on Friday or something.
No, they'll get, that has to be, in my opinion, that needs to be clarified in the syllabus well ahead of time or before the class starts or at the start of the class.
Yeah.
And if you want to give me a blank
no, that's good. Yeah, you clarified in the syllabus.
Yes. Yeah. And if you send me a blank page, you get a 0. And then for every, 10%, 20%, you get that deduction and you do nothing, you get nothing.
Yeah.
There's a way that you can check on this. It's called looking at properties of documents. And as long as you don't save it to your computer and you open it, but then go under properties, it'll tell you when it was created and when it was last modified. And then I screenshot that and send it back to them.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
a good
as long
idea.
as you don't save it to your own computer because then that edits that. But just open it, leave it open, and then it's the first tab on the left. If you go down to properties, and it'll pop up and tell you both when it was created and when it was last modified.
Okay. Thank you.
This also applies to, in addition to pages, I get corrupted files or file formats that I cannot open. I've seen a lot of that, more of that actually, and I think it's submitted for the same reasons, but I also see that.
Right, or there's the my internet went out, or whatever it is. But I think no matter what the circumstances are, you have to either do the one oops thing, or no exceptions. You give me nothing, you get nothing. And then you get 10% off every time, every day it's late or every week it's late or whatever the case may be. But to me, that's gaming the system, and adults should know better than that.
And keep in mind too that there are very specific guidelines in Blackboard about how to save a file, what file types should be uploaded, what types of files that we can see, what types of files are accepted. I mean, there's very specific guidelines for students about that. So really, they shouldn't be submitting files that we can't open. They shouldn't be submitting blank files, because there's very specific guidelines already in there. And I think it goes back to pattern of behavior. Like, I'll always put in a 0 right away for a blank page, and I'll say, did you realize you submitted a file that there's nothing there? It's a blank page. So then when they resubmit the assignment, you can consider it, still accept it and consider it late. However, if this is a pattern of behavior that continues, then there's something else going on. Obviously, either they don't know what they're doing and need some assistance and tutoring in how to save a file, or they're just trying to game the system. Okay, so somebody asked what constitutes attendance. If a student does not submit an assignment but emails you that they have issues, yes, an email that week counts as attending the class, oddly enough. So attendance will count if you received an email from a student regarding an assignment, if you received an assignment, if they participated in the discussion board. All those things count as attendance for that week. Blank pages needs to be clarified at the start of the class. Really, it's part of Blackboard already.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in there exactly what files we take, how they need to be submitted. Yeah. So there really shouldn't be any reason unless, I mean, I have had students that are of a different generation that have had legitimate issues with being able to save files. And in that case, we may have to just take them step by step, you know, on a phone call or have them call the help desk and get assistance in saving a file. I mean, there are cases where someone legitimately doesn't know the correct way to save a file. But I think those are few and far between. I think more so it's people panicking, submitting a blank file as a placeholder, knowing they're going to do it later and not wanting to be late. That's my opinion. Digital footprint is attendance. Yes, discussion board counts. Very true. Okay, so Casey says, I think having grades to students by Tuesday at the latest is really important, mostly because on certain assignments it will allow students to redo the assignment. Okay, and turn them back in by Friday or the next week to earn back points. Well, you're a wonderful person, Casey, that you're allowing them to redo it. That's definitely not a requirement. Ottawa does not require instructors to grade the assignments more than once, but if you want to do that, that's wonderful. It's a great way to help students improve their writing and critical thinking skills, so that's terrific. But it's certainly not required for you to read them more than once and grade them more than once. But yeah, grading early in the week as possible. Making sure that you grade the papers as early in the week as possible, particularly the first few weeks, to give students a sense of what the expectations are is important. And I think it's a great idea if you can. Just to reiterate that you have 1 week from the due date of the assignment to grade the assignment. So Ottawa gives you one full week from the deadline to grade that assignment. But yeah, certainly the earlier in the week that you can grade it, the better it is for the students and for the students to know what your expectations are. Yeah, the blank page trick. I don't know why lately that's just been, it's been more prevalent. Let's see. Okay. Have you ever been in a situation where a student in another time zone will argue for submitting an assignment late due to time zone? Has that ever been an issue? No one? Okay. I think, is there anyone who put something in the chat that I didn't address? Go ahead and raise your hand. I think I brought everything up, but if there isn't, let me know if there's something that I didn't address that you still want to discuss.
Karen.
Yeah.
It's Dula. We're having a conversation with Christopher. He just brought us up to speed on something called a paraphrase machine, which is plagiarism, I guess.
So, use Turnitin to verify plagiarism. Okay. Let's see. Turnitin doesn't always catch paraphrase machine. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Christopher?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry for the bad haircut. I just woke up. So paraphrase machine is the latest and not so greatest way to use an original work and have it sound like, well, let's go back from paraphrase machine. You'll find them on any kind of Google search. What the student does is cut and paste an original work, put it in paraphrase, like a translator. You've used translators before?
Yes.
Okay, same thing, except the words that come out are not of the student's tone. This is why during the introduction time, the first week, I cut and paste the student's work so I can recognize their tone. I know that the student is not using words like ameliorate or truncated versions in their daily vernacular.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, the other thing is, let me bring it up, from Dula?
Yes.
Dula, Christopher, I've gotten a few nonsensical papers in the past 6 months. That's exactly right. So the verbiage in the paraphrase machines it's not good. If you're used to reading something like Judith Butler, where the verbiage is very terse and tight, maybe it would work. But this is not the academic level that many of our students are up to. So what I do is I do a reverse Google search. Fortunately for many of the classes that I've taught, I teach them over and over again, and many of the papers that come up,
Right.
I recognize very quickly. So you do a reverse Google search. I cut and paste some of the terms, and Google does a great job of bringing up that link. Then I find that paper, I send it to the student and say, listen, I'm not accusing you, I'm just showing you. There's a big difference. I'm not accusing you, I'm showing you. This is not your work. It can't be, because here is the work. Now let's talk about what this means. After that, I cut and paste Ottawa's plagiarism policy to them. And that leads us to the next discussion is, let's have a phone call, because I don't want there to be any kind of mistake. The next time that you submit this to me, I'm going to make a report, because that is part of what I must do.
Do you give them the chance to rewrite it after a deduction?
Here's the thing is, I found that it's very, my reaction to this sets the whole tone of the discourse. If I just say 0, they haven't learned anything, and neither have I. I find it very effective to have an actual phone conversation and say, do you understand? You know, I'm not expecting anyone to confess. That's not my point. But I need you to understand you can't do this. So what are the ramifications? I'm sorry, but yeah, 0. This is plagiarism, this is a 0. But this is a gift. Let's make this a learning tool. And then the next time it happens, I'm going to have to bring it to a different level. It's not me. The onus is then on the student to realize this didn't work.
So you give them a one-shot, like a freebie, basically, after you've explained it and told them that this is what you've identified. So you basically say, look, you know what, I caught you. I'm not accusing you of anything, but let's learn and let's move forward. And the next time you will earn a 0.
I have to. No, yeah. They get a 0 for this because it's not their work.
Oh, right. I understand.
The next time goes to our policy, which means I make a report.
The academic dishonesty policy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm finding is a lot of Course Hero. Students really think that there's nothing wrong with Course Hero. Anytime you're getting work that's not your own and submitting it as your own, it's a problem. It's a big problem. But they're not realizing it. Either they're not realizing it or they haven't. We're all very busy. And when we get 30 papers, large assignments to grade, it might be that sometimes we just kind of checklist, is this here, is this here, is this here? The chances that students have gotten away with this before is great. But now we should be getting combat pay almost, because we are becoming something else. we're becoming not just I'm going to grade your work, it's I'm going to have to verify and then grade your work. The instruments out there for students to, forgive me, cheat are very tempting, especially when our students are at-risk adults, adults who may be overwhelmed, have a family and 2 jobs to go to, and an assignment that is due in an hour. The temptation is very great. And online makes it very easy. And if we're very busy and we're not doing due diligence, the students might skate and then say, well, you know, that kind of worked out for me, didn't it? It cost me 15 bucks, but I got through that stats class.
And we are planning another seminar within the next few months that's going to be all about plagiarism and plagiarism detection tools. So Christopher, if you find time to be at that seminar, I'm sure that you can bring a lot of rich information to that discussion. But
would you send me an email? Because if you'd like me, I'd be happy to get some links together to share with send me a reminder email so that I can have something to
we're in the process of planning it, so as soon as we know for sure when it's going to be, then I can do that.
But because I have some links to share.
Okay. What area do you teach, Christopher?
One more thing. I'm sorry, one more thing I have to say is very important. Many of these links include malware. So be very careful. So when you click on Paraphrase Machine, you're also clicking on cookies that could infect your computer. So be very careful when I send you a link that you have all of your firewalls and everything, and the students are going on there automatically. So they're not thinking about the malware that's being infected. It's infecting their computer.
What do you teach? Sorry.
No, I teach statistics.
Statistics. Okay, great. Okay.
For masochists, statistics.
Not my favorite subject.
You know, that's why the temptation is so great. The students are so stressed out, but the course is set up for everyone to succeed.
Yes. So this is a problem, and this is a little away from the discussion. We might have to table this until the plagiarism discussion, but I just want to bring up these two. Dr. Heidi was talking about students will use discussion content from other students, which does happen quite a bit. So make sure that you're really carefully reading the discussion posts because they're plagiarizing each other discussion posts. And that does happen more often than you would think.
Very sad.
It is sad. It's horrifying. Some people hire other people to do their assignments. Yes, I actually know someone who makes a living, and I'm sad to say this, who makes a living by writing dissertations for other people, which is a horrible thing. And I hate that she does that, but she does, and that's how she makes a living. And many people do it for undergraduate papers as well. They make a living, and they make a very, very, very good living doing that, and it's horrible. But yes, it's a huge problem. But you can pay other people to do your assignments. Overseas writing labs. Yep, that's what we're talking about. The writing labs, you pay them a fee and they'll write the paper for you. The problem with that, though, is that many times those papers are sold to a lot of people. So it ends up coming into the plagiarism detector. So you'll see like 3 other people have turned in that same paper, and it's a paper that they bought from somewhere. So yeah, that's another problem. And we will definitely bring this up when we talk about the plagiarism issues. And as I said, that'll be in the next few months. We're in the process of scheduling that, but I think that's going to be a great topic. It sounds like there's a lot of discussion around that. Sometimes schools force professors to do so to enhance their, oh my gosh, oh dear. Thanks, Christopher. Do you go by Chris or Christopher?
I'm sorry, I go by Christopher, but they just gave me Chris.
Okay, all right.
That's my email. If you if you could please send me a reminder if you'd like me to bring some information and links.
I definitely will.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Dr. Heidi's saying that sometimes schools force professors to do so to enhance their graduation rates. That's terrible. Yeah. When the courses revised, paper they purchase are no longer applicable. And I have had students turn in old papers from assignments that I had in a class like 2 years ago, and suddenly a paper will turn up and I'm like, how did you even know that's not the assignment? It hasn't been the assignment for 2 years. Well,
Yep.
That's how they know.
Yep.
Got it from someone else that took the class 2 years ago, or they bought it from someone that took the class 2 years ago. Plagiarizing themselves is another issue too. Okay, well, our session for today about deadlines is coming to an end. We've been here for an hour. I appreciate everyone being here on a Saturday. I know this was a lot of discussion. Did anyone have any pressing issues about deadlines that we didn't go over? Okay. So everyone feels comfortable, and I will definitely get the information about sports. I hope everyone found this useful, and we have a lot of stuff to discuss for the plagiarism seminar. As I said, that's going to be coming up in a couple months as soon as we get it scheduled. So we have a lot to talk about. There are some excellent things here that we need to really get into.
Is there any way that these types of webinars or Zoom meetings can be periodically scheduled for professional development or reminders or whatever? So for example, like you said you're going to work on one for plagiarism. Is there one that could be scheduled out for plagiarism and one for resources for that and other topics, kind of maybe every other month or something? So it's regular?
Well, we do them 4 times a year right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can do them more periodically. The committee that I chair is in charge of doing the seminars. So if you have ideas, please email them to me. Whatever ideas you have, we can schedule seminars on them. So,
okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, we just don't have all the ideas, but if you guys want seminars, definitely let me know and we can schedule whatever seminars you want. We can schedule them for you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope you found it useful.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.